Hello and welcome to the 5 Minute Film Club. And with Baz Luhrmann's Elvis film lighting up the box office this summer, I thought I would take a look at the single entry that an Elvis movie gets in my 501 must-see movies book. And that is Viva Las Vegas, or Love in Las Vegas, released in 1964. Lucky Jackson, played by Elvis of course, is a wannabe racing driver who is in Vegas to take part in their Grand Prix. However, he doesn't have the money to get a new engine for his car, but manages to score the money at the tables in Vegas. But his plans are quickly sidetracked by the arrival of Rusty Martin, played by ANN-MARGRET, who arrives to have her car fixed and then disappears, leaving Elvis on the hunt for her. He tracks her down to the hotel where she works as a swimming instructor, and when Lucky gets shoved into the pool by Rusty to cool off, he accidentally loses all his money and has to get a job at the hotel to try and earn that money back. While there, Rusty and Lucky start an on-again, off-again relationship, involving informational trips to the Hoover Dam, water skiing, and thankfully lots of singing and dancing. Lucky also has to fight off advances to Rusty's affections from another racing driver, Count Elmo Mancini. But after a few close calls, Rusty and Lucky are back on track, and Lucky scores himself a new engine to take part in the race, where of course he sails to victory, and there is just, and I mean just enough time in the film for Rusty and Lucky to get married. Apologies for all the spoilers there, but surely you didn't come here for the plot, now did you? Viva Las Vegas, or as I said, Love in Las Vegas, as it was called in the UK when it was released, is considered one of the better Elvis movies. This movie comes amongst a string of films that the star had been making since the mid-1950s, such as Jailhouse Rock and King Creole. However, this film stands apart from the rest in several key areas. First up, it is directed by a stalwart of the MGM golden era of Hollywood musicals, and that is George Sidney. Now, I've talked about George Sidney and his musicals before when I reviewed Pal Joey last year. I've got a link to it just up here. I'm glad to say that a lot of the things that I really loved about Pal Joey are carried over here in Viva Las Vegas. What I really like is that Sidney films dance and musical numbers in a simple but very expansive way. I love the cinematography and colour choices and those pops of really strong colour used as a backdrop, and also, like Pal Joey, there are moments where the songs aren't just performance numbers, where we get a slightly more surreal situation. I remember a dream sequence in Pal Joey. A lot of that film is very natural, the way it approaches musical numbers, and they are generally performances, but there are moments where you get the kind of Busby Berkeley-esque moments, and that is also the case, thankfully, with Viva Las Vegas. Another boost this film gets over other Elvis outings is the pairing between him and young up-and-comer ANN-MARGRET, who had worked previously with Sidney on Bye Bye Birdie, which is essentially based on an Elvis-type character rising to fame. ANN-MARGRET is fantastic in this film and is very much an equal to Elvis, and whereas she is not as strong a singer as him, she is full of charisma and got on very, very well with Elvis off screen. Elvis liked to be challenged, and he certainly gets it from ANN-MARGRET in this film. You see multiple times Elvis getting fired up with ANN-MARGRET, and his performance just elevates the more he is engaged in her dance numbers, in their single duet together. You just get a sense that Elvis is loving every second he gets to be with ANN-MARGRET on screen. He thinks he's better, and I can tell you I think he's a hell of a lot better as well when they are together. However, all of this didn't, unsurprisingly, go down well with Elvis's manager and leash holder, Colonel Tom Parker. The ex-Carnival promoter was always after one thing: money. And more importantly, how to spend the least amount of it. But seasoned Hollywood director George Sidney was not going to let Colonel Tom Parker get his way. Sidney was here to make a big deal about ANN-MARGRET and show her off in the best possible way. And this approach isn't to the detriment of Elvis's time on the screen, and actually Elvis welcomed this. In fact, it leads to some really interesting scenes in the film, Not least the title song, Viva Las Vegas, being performed in one single take, something that is unique amongst Elvis films. But the multiple camera setups and retakes that Sidney was doing with the ANN-MARGRET numbers eventually did lead to Colonel Tom Parker throwing his weight about. Now originally there was planned to be 3 duets between ANN-MARGRET and Elvis, and that was cut down to just one by Tom Parker, who insisted they just keep moving on and make Elvis the number one thing about this film. And actually, during the time when they were shooting Viva Las Vegas, Colonel Tom Parker thought, I'm never going to let this happen again. So he signed a contract with another producer for their next film that happened to be Kissing Cousins. And actually, that film ended up coming out before Viva Las Vegas. Such a mess, the Elvis filmography, really, when you look at it. Viva Las Vegas, for context, took 2 months to shoot. Kissing Cousins, 17 days. Essentially, with an Elvis film, you get what you pay for. This film is still spectacularly cheesy in parts, and some of the sets really look and unfortunately sound like sets. But it also serves as a wonderful time capsule to Vegas before it changed, and also an ode to a certain type of rock star musical film that had started appearing in the 1950s. However, all of this was about to change. While Elvis was filming Viva Las Vegas, the Beatles broke America, and importantly started to break Elvis's chart records as well. And when this film was released, the Beatles were actually 2 weeks into filming A Hard Day's Night, and that film versus this one is a completely different beast, a much less flashier, showier number than any of the Elvis films. I definitely enjoyed watching this film, even at times I tended to be laughing at it rather than with it. But what I most enjoyed about it is that chemistry between ANN-MARGRET and Elvis, and just seeing Elvis perform is also a joy. So I do really recommend that you give it a watch. If you've never seen an Elvis film, make this maybe the only one that you watch. Next up, I'm looking at a film from 1985, and that is a Peter Weir film called Witness. So it's part of the 501 Must-See Movies book. So please subscribe to the channel if you want to see that video, and please give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. But until next time, I'll say thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.